I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Commissioner Yocum?
Present.
Commissioner Wilson present. First thing on the agenda is we had the phone amendment. There's some phones that I believe was left out. Is that correct?
Yeah, there was 8 users altogether. There was extras, and then they had left off a couple. They sent emails. Jenny asked if you guys had any questions today. But
No.
that's what it is. Just
No.
an amendment to what you've already signed.
Okay, so we can go ahead and get that taken care of.
Just need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Tim make a motion, I second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Opposed, anything? Okay. All right. Now we're going to the jail renovation. Sean J., you want to go first?
Sure.
Has he got a mic over there?
Yeah, there is
Okay.
one. Just need to speak really loud if you can.
Will that be able to be viewed online?
Yes,
Yes,
it's
it's online
streaming
now.
live
Okay,
right now.
great.
Good evening, Sanjay Patel with RQAW Corporation. We had a jail committee meeting.
That microphone, can you hear him okay on it?
Yes.
Can you hear? We had a jail committee meeting a couple weeks ago, and the determination of that committee meeting was that we slightly modified the scope of the project that we had been authorized to do. What you can see on the screen is a result of that committee meeting. The existing housing pod that you can see right here remains as is from what we had originally talked about, but leaving the existing housing in place, updating the security electronics, the doors, the plumbing fixtures, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, all those kinds of things. So that part of the scope has not changed. The administration addition, again, that has remained unchanged from our previous scope of work. In fact, it's similar to what we did 2 years ago. The replacement of the Sally port, again, that has remained the same. There was a slight addition to the intake and booking to accommodate a bigger laundry, a few padded cells, and a slight expansion of the kitchen and laundry to take care of the additional inmates that we might see once this design is complete. The existing indoor recreation that was going to be converted into a medical suite, and the big change was an addition of a small housing pod for up to 70 beds that, with the existing housing, would amount to 140 total beds in this facility once it's all done. This allows us a couple of benefits, is that once this housing pod is added onto, there's a potential that the existing inmates can be moved out of the housing and moved into this pod, and renovation could be done at a lot reduced rate and much quicker than if we had inmates in that facility. This is a blow-up plan of the housing pod. Again, we did try and provide up to 5 classification day rooms with up to 68 inmates. So there's 68 inmates in here and 72 in the existing housing. That's a total of 140 beds. There is a small recreation, a couple of mechanical rooms, and a stair going up to the control room that can look down into all of these day rooms. In the future, there is the potential that you could add on to the left side of this pod and add up to, depending on how you want to do, whether you want to do dorms or you want to do cells. I couldn't see why you could not add 100, 150 more beds if you chose to do so. But we are not building anything today for that future expansion. The benefit also of this layout is that when you do add the additional beds in the future, you do not need to add additional staff to maintain or man those additional inmates. A quick blow-up of the kitchen expansion that you can see here. This line here is the end of your existing kitchen. We've added about 5,000 square feet. That's for a bigger kitchen, some dry storage, a cook's office, which was required, a laundry space here, and a couple of padded cells. This is the infill of the medical suite for the indoor rec. It's got one isolation cell, one padded cell, a nurse's station, an exam room, and a staff restroom. So we're being very cost conscious with our expansion efforts. We want to make sure there is adequate spaces to operate efficiently, but we're making sure that all the monies we look at spending are spent not as Band-Aids, but as long-term solutions for the jail. This is a quick snapshot of the administration addition to the sheriff's office. Again, all the spaces that are shown here were straight from the 2017 design, and I believe that it has been validated by the sheriff and his staff. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Can we, on that expansion, I know we can do it, but I would like to see down is, on that expansion, have enough capabilities of conduit, plumbing, or whatever going out that way where we could actually tie into, you know what I mean, and expand out the other way, and all that would already be there.
Are you talking about the housing pod?
Yeah.
Okay. We can put the infrastructure in. I just think we want to be careful that we don't plan too much in detail but too far ahead, because you might put infrastructure in that may or may not apply 10, 15 years down the road. Mechanical systems, just like you see this pod here, you could flip it over and you could have mechanical rooms in the corners of the future pod. But the connectivity will be there, conduits that go from one to the other, plumbing that can tie together, electrical, you know, cutouts in walls where you can blow through easily without having to tear down
Right.
the entire wall. So we will plan for the future. We just won't build a lot of it right now, but you'll have the ability to do that.
Did you look any more about keeping that on the same elevation, and can we go ahead and put that on the same elevation?
We did look into that a little bit based on comments received. It is our understanding that burying this building 4 feet in the ground will incur a lot more costs. From a construction standpoint, it's going to be a lot more difficult, and there's a lot of water management that has to be done. So all your perimeter walls would have to have drain tiles. Your underside of the slab would have to have a drainage system. And I think the fall from this pod for the sewer might barely make it. It might not be adequate. So because of those factors, we believe it's better to keep it on grade. One thing that you see here from the previous design was the RAM system that I talked about. We have been able to eliminate that complicated ramp system that you saw last time. So there was one roundabout ramp and stuff like that. So that's all gone. You have a straight shot ramp down from the core down to the control room. So there's
That's
no
good.
steps, no nothing. It's just a straight shot. You get your 4 foot of elevation, and you don't have to
How
worry
much
about things.
elevation you got dropping? How many feet?
4 feet.
4 feet dropping how far?
It's 48 feet of run, but you've got landings and stuff, so it's about 64.
Okay.
So we've got the space to do that, and I think this is a much better solution than what we had last time.
Sanjay,
Yes.
from the control room down to the rec room, is there kind of a straight shot, a straight view where the control room, they can see if there's any problem going on down at the jail, there's got any problem or anything, or nothing's gonna be hid, or, I know you got cameras, but are you gonna site to make sure it's?
So that sight line between the second floor control room up to the top,
Uh-huh.
it's kind of not a clear shot of view, but using cameras, I think to expect that kind of a clear line of sight would be a little challenging. I think the things that we found is that staff usually are not looking for that kind of stuff. They're sitting at their desk, looking at the monitors, looking at the cameras, and relying on that rather than looking down a hallway at
Okay.
something. But, you know, if we wanted to do that, I'm sure there's a way to do it. It's just not going to be very easy.
Questions in the audience? Sheriff, you? Any questions, input? On it?
It's your time to ask the questions.
Mr. Hawkins?
How did you reach this part when just a few months ago you were going to do away with the extra beds? What changed?
It's very simple. It's called jail population. Here, well, back, the jail population was down. It's back up. Last time I checked, it was 52 or 54. And I think the max is 72, and 80% of that's considered, correct me if I'm wrong, 80% of that's considered full. So we're already back up practically full. Am I right?
There's 58 or 59 in there now, but yeah, that's going on.
So we're back up. So why would you spend a large amount of money without taking care of the problem that we originally started with? It's a crowding problem.
You didn't have a crowding problem.
When you're at 80%,
But how are you going about the process? Are you going to bid this, or is this?
we're not even the bid. The bidding is not even a question here. I mean, we're just working, trying to get the print up, and then we'll figure out which way we're going on that process. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I don't even think we're even to that point of discussing how we're going to manage to bidding it out. I mean, we're just trying to get up a print that is practical and we can use it. Everyone sees value in it, and that's what we're trying to do. So, you got to have room for expansion for more beds. You got to do that. You want to go spend a large amount of money and not take care of the original problem. The original problem is we got a crowding problem.
What is the amount of money?
Ooh.
No price yet? You had 14 million had to pay for few.
I'm going to say this much. There was a lot of figures that was around here that shouldn't probably never came out, because we haven't, until you see a design, correct me if I'm wrong, until you actually get to the phase where you got something designed where you can actually see it, you can come back and actually get the actual cost estimates. That's where we're at. Correct.
So you didn't say that paper is anywhere between 10 and 14 million?
That was when we was doing that without doing a renovation, adding on the beds.
So this will be more.
More likely.
So we're back to 22.5?
No. You asking for figures. There's no way we can do that until...
Tim, you gave three figures to start out with.
Me?
You had a 10,000, you had an 18,000, you had 22.5.
No, that was in millions.
What?
That was in millions.
It was what?
That was in millions. You said 18,000.
I don't know, I just, so you're not very far along, you're just.
No, Kim, we're just a different design. We were back a little bit with the question why we're not gonna do anything. And we're coming up with a design that we might not exceed, be blowed out, something maybe we can live with. And then we gotta get a price on what it's roughly gonna cost, and see what kind of money the council's gonna let us to have, and see if we can live within that, within what.
So is there still an option to get the lowest cost? I mean, accept this design or accept your?
All that stuff is not even discussed yet. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, we're mainly discussing just how much it's gonna cost and get this information out. I mean, we can't let him just.
It's changed, I mean, you changed it, but that's okay.
Well, we went from a large amount of beds to a smaller amount of beds because we're trying to be doing something here that's reasonable.
Okay, who's all involved in the jail committee?
Mr. Yoakum, myself, the sheriff, Mr.
Bob
Spence,
Spence.
the 911 director, Mr. Dreer, you're gonna, no, you just attended, Mr. Our attorney,
And the sheriff.
and the sheriff.
Okay, John's the reserve deputy, the 911 director, jail commander. Who's from the outside? Bob's retired sheriff.
What's your point?
My point is, I think taxpayers should be representative on that board. And I know at one point you said Sonny Carey.
I've never seen,
Talk to Sonny.
I haven't seen Sonny Carey at a meeting.
Is there minutes to this meeting? I mean, just trying to figure out how it works.
Not to my knowledge, Kim. There's all kind of verbal sitting around table.
Okay. Well, I feel better that you haven't set a price.
No.
We haven't set a price.
No, sir.
And I don't see a problem with the drawings and stuff. stuff, as long as you get brought in. Everybody runs for office, you say, I'm gonna represent the people, and that's just what, you know, what you need to do. And if you can get it done at a lower price, you ought to go with it.
That's what we're doing,
That-
we're bringing
that's-
to the people tonight our plan for discussion, input, and then they're gonna get a rough price, what we're gonna have to cost us, and we'll have to go to the council and see if we can get it funded.
I mean, it used to be, if you needed a new car, let's say county highway truck, you still bid that stuff out?
Yes?
You
Well,
set your specs,
dump trucks,
you
yes.
Some things we do, sometimes we
No.
don't.
Yeah.
Some things you're not required to.
That's where it's wrong. I mean, I think that you ought to set the specs like we used to at the sheriff's department and let everybody in, all the dealerships, I mean, do you still do that? Or you just go buy what you want?
Basically,
We put 'em out
we
for
put
bid.
the money out there for the police car and let the sheriff finds, you know, a police package and the best deal for us.
So this is kind of going that way too.
We haven't even been, we're not even there.
Well, you're paying him to do drawing, you're paying Jack to design, bid, and build it, and he makes off that a percentage. So it's more beneficial to come in high. And I'm saying for the people, you need to come in low. I mean, every one of us does this in our normal life. If your car breaks down, you go in there and have it fixed or get an estimate on it, and it's almost cheap to buy a new one, you gotta make a decision.
We gotta make a
Once we
decision.
know the price list, we can go on.
Right.
I'm arguing about a mute point, but I just want you to keep that in the back of your mind.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I just suggest it's just one man's thought, but people, you know, when they go pay their taxes and do all these things, they think about these things. So, okay, I'll shut up.
You're all right.
But like I
Thank you.
said-
That's what we're here for tonight.
Well, I use one question.
There's no way that,
I treat you to one.
there's no way that if we would've did the original renovation that we had at the last time, just renovate the jail, and then come back to the taxpayers in 2 years and say, hey, we're overcrowded, we gotta build on. That's not smart. That's not smart.
And
So-
that's every time I've been here, do you realize in the United States that we've got 4% of the population in the world? We've got 25% incarcerated. The government, from the president on down, is restructuring the criminal justice system. You've got new rules in effect here, I don't know how it's working, maybe it doesn't. I think it's trial route 23 or 24, something like that, where the states come in and change things. You guys, and rightfully so, and it's great for the council to do the drug rehabilitation program. These are taking all the people you're reducing. I mean, the goal is to reduce incarceration. Not sit here and think we're gonna lock up, I don't know what he said, the max was about 150 people, if it goes that high, but you're.
130.
The ability to do it with 60 here, that's 120 people. You've never reached 120 people. And that's back when we had higher population we got now. I don't know, maybe Bob had people sleeping on the floor, I didn't.
Do you realize how many
And
outstanding?
I've showed you the stats on how many people's incarcerated. And Bob one year had the most of anybody. Now, maybe he had him sleeping on the floor, maybe he didn't do his duty, I don't know. Maybe I didn't do my duty.
But right now, I think last time I checked, we had 156 warrants out.
How
Something like
many
that.
jailable?
Huh?
I know the answer to this.
I'm just saying, I'm just stating a fact.
So don't, you know, I have done, I researched, I've done this for 16 years, I know where it goes.
Then you have
Bob's
dep.
done it. Now, I don't know how Bob feels about it, you know, it's up to him. But I'm telling you, we have not, 2017, you had a write-up for being overcrowded.
Correct.
That's it. So you say there's an overcrowding problem, I don't know. But I don't know where it all went.
We have a variable there. okay? When I talk to deputies who say they come here and they drop someone off, and when they're headed back to Clinton, they have to pick them up and take them back to Clinton. You know? I mean, how many of these people, I mean, if a judge and a prosecutor has a decision, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, a prosecutor has a lot to do with how many stay and how many go, correct?
No, they've changed, they've
I'm just-
changed it. I mean, the bonds are not set as much as they were, they're trying to keep everybody out. That's why I say they're trying to cut population. And we're saying it's gonna increase.
I'm just saying right now, 80% of 72 is 56 or 58, and we're there. According to what the state, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, 80% of the max jail population of 72, 80% actually about 56 or 57, someone correct me? And we're there. We're there right now. I mean, am I saying something wrong, Mike? Is that correct?
That's correct.
I mean, so,
You're at what percent? You said 52. What percent you say you're there?
you take 72%, and I'm just, you guys correct me, you guys are professionals on this. The max is 72 beds in the jail, and the state says that 80% is considered full. So you take 80% of 72, which would be 56, 58, I mean, I'm
57.
57, and we're there. We're there now. I mean, what's the question? I mean, you got
The question
it's,
is, Tim, that's not the population of the jail. 72 is not. I brought all this stuff to you. Did you look at it?
yeah, I get the
Okay, let's
printout.
just call the state, Rob Carter, and ask him what the.
But here's an engineer right here that can tell me. Can you tell me how do they rate a jail? Is it 80% of it?
He figured that higher on the.
I'm just talking about right now. I'm talking about right now. Right now, what we're at. Is it 80% of 72?
72 beds, due to classification inefficiency, you lose 20% of your beds.
Okay.
So at 80%, you're considered full to be operating safely.
And it'd be at about 55, 56.
57 beds, you're considered full.
And right now, we're at right now. We're there. Right now. I mean, I'm talking about next week or next month. We're there now. I mean, somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
And that's your position, and I'm not, and it's Mike's job. Both of you, I mean, you call it, but you're making this decision for taxpayers in the county.
That's why.
And so you owe it to them to bring it in the lowest you can, make the fixes that needs to be at that jail. But if you get to the point where it's cheaper to build a new one, that's what you're gonna have to look at. Why dump money in that jail? And I don't know, that'll work. I think they're probably better, but.
Well, we've been.
Whatever you're satisfied with.
Well, we've been on this process for 4 years. Somebody help me?
6.
4 years.
Started in 2015.
And then we get to a place we eventually, we need, I mean, it's not fair to Mike. I mean, Mike is tired, you know, of this not being resolved, and I understand
I
it.
can believe that, but that's up to you.
But-
You gotta make a decision. If you wanna do this, do it.
But see what we
But you
did-
pay the consequences if it backfires. If it doesn't backfire, you take.
But what we did, we revised this. I mean, what was the original setting on the beds that we was gonna do on the outside? The new beds. How much was it on the original that we came original?
Plan it was 120.
120. So we cut it by 50%.
120 what, beds?
The original one was going to do that did the whole, you know, with the new, everything out there was going to be another 120 beds. We revised that to 60, to half of that. So we revised it to come up with a more working type instead of having a large expanse. We're not, the oversize of that is not, the oversize we're figuring is not that much. I think it's good for the next 20 years. I mean, I don't see a large amount going in there, but at least we have that. You got to have that cushion there in this project.
Okay, it's designed to have less employees or more?
It would be, he can visual
It's
tell
our
you.
understanding that you'll be able to operate this with the same number of staff that you have right now.
So the pod system is, oh, you've probably seen them, and that's what that is.
What's the staffing, how many in for jailers for coming in? What's the staffing over for? If you go by the state.
Teams that take to 4
You got 14 jailers now, so you got 15.
No, the 14 includes the.
Oh, including, we have still 14. If you had 120 inmates,
That puts us, that gives us one in the new section, one in the old section.
you got 4 shifts.
So we revised what we originally was doing to make it smaller, you know, so it went
Bring
overkill.
in as good as you can.
We will, we really will.
You know, we live in uncertain times right now, and I don't think anyone's around here has lived, maybe Jack Krause can say, I'm sorry, Jack, picking on you, that we never had to live for a virus like we're going through right now, pandemic, you know, I mean, and we don't know what's gonna happen, the world's kinda crazy right now, things going on, and we're, you know, if that's, say we could build this for $10 million and we don't do it, 5 years later it's 20 million, how come you didn't do it back then, Tim? I mean, we're kinda trying to look for the future of not being overkill and not too hard on the taxpayers now as to have to wait 5 or 6 years and then we triples on us. We're just trying to look to the future. We don't know what tomorrow's gonna bring.
Yes, that's true.
We don't know,
That's very true, but
things are crazy right now, you know, we've never, you know.
You're betting that it's gonna increase, instead of saying it's gonna stay the same.
We're not betting that anything's gonna happen, we are making a
We're preparing.
good decision to protect us in case it does.
Okay.
I mean, we don't wanna go back to taxpayers after we do this first part and say, we need to increase your taxes because we didn't get enough done the first time. Let's just do it right the first time, walk away from this and have a set cost in 20 years, have it all paid for. And I know council ain't gonna be happy. I know the taxpayers won't be happy. We have to come back and say we gotta raise taxes. And we're not gonna do that. And I think this works within the scope of what we projected costs, and I think it'll work within that confine. I mean, don't quote me on that, but if we're reducing things, hopefully we'll have a better cost. But this has been a long process, and we need to move on it. Need to get to say we're making a decision here, and it's the best decision that I think that we've come up with.
The sheriff's holding you up.
What?
I don't think the sheriff's holding you up.
No.
I think he deserves it.
He deserves it. He deserves it. And he's been very patient, and we did to take care of his issues, and I think we can do it with this.
Any other questions?
So you decide on this. That's all I'm trying to, is this it?
The print's right there. And if you have any questions,
And that's it?
Yes, that's it.
That's what the design,
yeah. Well, it's not the final design, you know, and there's so much more to this. This is a working document, you know, as far as really getting everything in there, you know, there might be some altercation. I mean, once you explain that.
So this is just the first pass at doing the design. What we've captured is the amount of square footage we're going to add to the project, and generally what the renovation's going to be. After ongoing discussion with sheriff and staff, you know, some walls might move, some spaces might change. But generally speaking, the scope is what you see there. So there will not be any drastic changes from that plan.
so they came to you and said, we want so many square foot. and they did
No,
what?
it was a question of, you know, we have 72 beds in the existing jail. We think we need to add about 50 to 70 more beds. But what kind of design can you come up with? And that was our first.
That's 104.
140.
So we went to 480 on that. Okay.
Any councilman got any questions? Guess we can't do anything till we get the final figures, what we're looking at money-wise, to bring to you. Mr.
And
Drew?
I'd just like to say that, I know this has been a long process, but once we get established and figured out what we're gonna do, and we get it concrete, let's get that pricing concrete, because I don't wanna see, once we start this, that the cost keeps escalating, because of change orders this and change orders that, let's make sure everything's right.
I understand, Randy. Anybody else?
Anybody from the council? Well, you just talk to anybody else.
Could, just, because when I put this in the paper in a couple of days, the first thing everybody's gonna ask is, how soon will we know how much it costs? can you offer any kind of a timeline as to when we'll be able to come back with those numbers?
Within a week, I'll have a hard number. The problem with giving you a number in the next day or two is the construction number, and there's a lot more costs that go into that.
Certainly.
So in order to give the commissioners and the council a true picture, I've got to get with the financial advisor as for capitalized interest.
And I'm not looking to put anybody on the spot with any numbers that they're not confident in right now. I just like to let people know, you know, they're gonna have questions, and I'd like to let them know when they can expect to get those particular.
I would think in a week. 2 is very safe, but probably in a week. I'm somewhat at the mercy of the financial advisor, so I'm speaking on their behalf.
Which one is it?
Do that.
2 weeks sounds good.
Okay.
There's nothing else?
I might point out that Tim, a jail 4 years ago cost $284 a foot to build construction-wise. That same building now is $475 4 years ago, twice as much. And I have every confidence that 4 years from now, that'll be double again, the rate it's going. So, from that point of view, inflation-wise, you can't get up fast enough.
Motion to adjourn? No other question?
Second.
Thank you folks for coming.
Here's